Welcome back to The Line. It's a new year. That means some new faces in elected positions in Santa Fe. Governor Susana Martinez was sworn in for a second term in office, and we have a new attorney general, a new state auditor, and a new state treasurer. And Tom, what do you think Governor Martinez will prioritize in her second term?
Well, if her inaugural address is any sign, she's going to be focusing on children and the economy, and all other issues are basically off the table. But she has a big challenge. She is coming in with a tremendous mandate from the state, for lack of a better term.
Right.
When you look at the vote differences and such, and so it's really it's all on her shoulders now. She's going to have to make sure that do what she can to make sure that all of her cabinet appointees get through the Rules Committee and get confirmed, but she's really going to have to make sure that her cabinet secretaries are successful in that her own political agenda of making sure that she leverages this opportunity with the House of Representatives is accomplished. And I think that's really going to be focused on children's issues, whether it's through CYFD, as we've talked about, or through the Public Education Department.
Interesting. Same question on priorities, and additionally, Merritt, with that mandate, that happens when you get 60% plus of a vote from the electorate, is there a chance of overreaching here, or is this a time to be a little more nuanced in her approach?
Well, I think Martinez has been successful for being fairly moderate and not towing her party line. And if you look at the top state offices, it was mixed.
Right.
I mean, no one, the majority of voters did not vote a straight ticket to elect the people we had. So people are making choices about individuals and the decisions they've made. So no, I don't see Susana Martinez changing her core political values just because she's in her second term and she's got the House.
Sure, absolutely. Martha, I want to skip to when Hector Balderas interests me. The last month or so has been very interesting with the asking for resignations from staff just before Christmas. But he's also said he's going to go after some stuff. He's going to really get active. This could be very interesting, couldn't it? This could be a very interesting 4 years.
Well, it's going to be very interesting, Gene, for this reason. His predecessor, Gary King, especially in the last bit of his term, was not active.
Gotcha.
It was almost like something was put out the word, we're not going to do anything because we're running for governor and we don't want any controversy. That was not good for New Mexico. It was certainly not good for the Attorney General's office. And I would say, by the way, that I think Martinez is in office more due to her opponent's weakness than her own strength. And part of that was how the AG's office was run. Balderas has always been more of a go-getter, even as an auditor. He went after things that legitimately he could, but prior auditors had ignored, such as whether state agencies were meeting their mandate, how they were spending money, and so forth. So I think he's going to be much more aggressive. As to the firings, yes, I think that needed to be done, now down to a person who can say. But definitely a house cleaning was in order. Was it done at exactly the right time? That is a question. It's tough to fire people anytime but right before Christmas. Actually, he didn't fire them because he's not in office, but he was trying to give them notice.
That's right.
It didn't play very well in the media, and certainly it doesn't play well personally with the folks that it happened to. But is that better than waiting until January 3rd and then doing it and overnight?
That's right. You got to clean your desk out with it.
Yeah, you have no planning. So, but I think Balderas is going to be better than his predecessor, aggressive in ways that he should. The state audit of HSD has been dragging on way too long. I think he knows it. I think he's going to clean it up.
Interesting about this position isn't with AG. It's a very activist position if you want it to be. It's also a great way to get into Congress if you want it to be, because you have a great record of solving problems and getting things done. How do you picture Hector's approach to this in the next 4 years?
Well, both Hector Balderas and Tim Keller, I think, are sort of we're both very, very hopeful that they can use these offices to really make some major, major changes. Hector took as Martha said, took the auditor's office and turned it into a serious operation. I think Tim Keller has big ideas. Both of these guys are probably two of our strongest. They're young. They're both younger than me, so young leaders in the state. And I think they're going to hold the legislature and the governor accountable for decisions, and I think we need that. Tim really wants to turn that shop into a policy evaluation shop. Are we doing things right?
Now, what
by
does
the
that
state?
mean, a policy evaluation shop?
Are we making good policy?
Yeah.
Are we looking at what the other states are doing and not doing it based on politics or contracts
Gotcha.
or political favors, but are we doing it based on what's the best for our kids? If that's the top priority for the governor, what are the best policies around this country for kids? If it's economic development, what's working? I mean, Tim led the efforts to make sure our economic development incentives were working, and you know the evidence is very, very mixed in terms of what our economic development strategy is. I think these are two serious guys, and I think they're going to make a huge difference for the state.
Yeah, interesting. It's on Merritt's point earlier that it wasn't necessarily talking about party or anything. People were voting about individuals, weren't they? When you look at who got in and got out.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, you know, all you have to do is go back and take a look at, you know, how the final vote tallies, you know, panned out to really kind of see how New Mexico residents really are, you know, that middle of the road kind of voter. You know, when it comes to middle of the road, that's something that the governor is going to need to be able to do if she wants success during this legislative session. You know, it seems as if everybody is lining up right now with the big three issues with just because of the recent headlines, right to work really kind of being that flag bearer for change for the governor. And yeah, there were some very interesting comments from Senate Majority Leader Michael Sanchez, just as far as the reasons that he's against it. And I think that one of the reasons that we'll see play out in the coming months is, as far as right to work is concerned, is that, you know, you're going to have those who are for it are going to say that unions are bad, and unions are going to get thrown under the bus. You know, it's hard to, you know, think of it as a, you know, middle of the road, sometimes conservative, sometimes liberal, that, you know, hey, unions have a real place in our society. And the private sector unions more so have been devastated by this lack of economy than the public sector unions. But yet everybody wants to separate it out. And I think it's that separation that's going to cause the great challenges for the governor during this legislative session by saying, okay, we're going to go after the private sector unions, but for the public sector, we might not want to touch those.
Interesting point there. Merritt, you have a follow-up on that? You were
Yeah, I'm
leaning in on that one, yeah.
Oh, that's. I think it's fascinating that you know, we've got a situation where our public sector employees, who are largely white-collar civil servants, have no choice about whether they have a union or not. But also, that's how they get their benefits. So has the state even thought about offering a non-union benefits package and letting people, giving them the option? Right now, the public sector isn't even really kind of set up for choice.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the issues that are coming up in this legislature, they seem very cut and dried, but there's so many other things. Voter ID, okay, people are supporting it on both sides, but then what do we do about driver's licenses for undocumented residents? Then what do we do about real ID? And how do we shuffle it back to we want to make sure, preserve the integrity of our elections. So, so many of these issues, which seem very right, left, cut, dried, there's a lot of murk.
Well said.
This right to work issue is sort of a solution in search of a problem. I think, you know, Dan Mayfield had that great piece in Business First this week that said, you know, if you actually talk to recruiters and site selectors, it's nowhere near. It's old school.
Right.
Nobody
It was big in
thinks
the
about
80s, and
it.
since
It's
then,
just a
yeah.
non-issue, and nobody talks about it. And it's going to be completely
Why is
irrelevant.
it so big then?
You know what it's about? I think the Journal did a great piece on it, which basically says this is about, sadly, unions are and public sector unions are the last place where people can raise money for folks who believe that they represent a different philosophy, you know, that they're not going to attack government, that they're not going to attack public employment, public services. So if you take away their members, then you're going to reduce their power, and they're already outspent
They're
5 or 6 to
already-
1. So you know we're going to make it basically. If you think that the big corporate powers are taking over policy making, not just in New Mexico but around the country, if this happens in New Mexico and across the state, you're going to see more of it.
Yeah.
But the public
This is-
sector unions are among the largest PAC contributors, and they're affecting the political process. Doesn't that seem like a conflict of
Well,
interest?
it's the only counterbalance. You know, they're still outspent 10. I mean, if you look at the numbers at the national level, it's as high as 10 to 1. Look, you know, compared to what the Koch brothers give.
Exactly. They're not a union, but they're much more powerful. And but I wonder in this issue is it really is affecting such a small sliver of the workforce. We need to be talking about where are the jobs. We need to be talking about other things rather than, and as Merritt says, we're not even set up to do it if it did pass.
That's right. That's right.
But where are the jobs? That is the big question for New Mexico. We're still last in job creation.
That's a fact. Stay with us. The Line debates PNM's plans for a coal-fired generating station next on New Mexico in Focus.